Not everyone deserves access to your story. That might sound harsh at first, but if you think about it, you'll realize it's true. Every person you meet is not qualified to handle the weight of your journey. Some people only want to know your story so they can pick it apart, criticize your decisions, and measure your life against their own insecurities. They're not asking because they care. They're asking because curiosity feeds their gossip. And if you hand them your heart, they'll carry it like a rumor instead of a treasure. See, too often we confuse exposure with connection. Just because someone leans in doesn't mean they lean in with love. Just because someone smiles at your progress doesn't mean they celebrate your success. There are people who clap when you're speaking, but behind the curtain of their heart, they're plotting how to pull you down. That's why discernment matters. You can't just let anybody have access to the intimate details of your life, because some people are not builders, they're breakers. Think about it. If a bank guards money with vaults, codes, and armed security, why do you think your story, something even more valuable, should be wide open to anybody who asks? Banks don't let just anyone walk in and grab cash. They know the worth of what they're holding. And yet, many of us throw the pearls of our testimony into careless hands and wonder why they end up trampled. You've got to know your value. You've got to recognize that your story is a gift, and gifts are not meant to be dumped out on every doorstep. There are people who come close, not because they want to bless you, but because they want to study you. They look for cracks, for weaknesses, for vulnerabilities. If you tell them too much too soon, they'll use it later to undermine you. That's why you have to test people's character before you share your chapters. Everybody doesn't deserve the backstage pass to your life. Some folks need to stay in the balcony watching from a distance because they don't have the maturity to handle what's happening behind the curtain. And let's be real, sometimes it's not even malice, it's immaturity. Some people don't mean harm, but they can't handle the weight of your truth. They'll misinterpret it, misquote it, and mishandle it. Not because they're evil, but because they're not equipped. You don't give a toddler a fine china plate because they don't know how to hold it. You don't hand a car key to someone who hasn't learned to drive because they'll crash it. In the same way, you don't hand your story to someone who hasn't shown they can carry it responsibly. So you must ask yourself, does this person have the character to carry my confidence? Do they have the maturity to hold what I'm about to share? Will they guard it like it's sacred, or will they spread it like it's cheap? Because the difference between healing and hurting often lies in who you let close enough to know the details. If you've ever felt betrayed, if you've ever had your words twisted, if you've ever been wounded by the very people you trusted, it's because you gave access to someone who wasn't qualified. And the lesson is not to harden your heart, it's to guard your access. Love people, but don't expose everything. Care for them, but don't confess everything. Treat everyone with kindness, but be selective with intimacy, because not everyone deserves access. Joseph had a dream, a God-given dream. It was not something he created in his imagination. It was planted by heaven itself. But here's where the problem came. Joseph shared his dream with the wrong people. He thought his brothers would celebrate him. He thought his family would be happy to see the vision on his life. But instead of applauding, they became angry. Instead of embracing him, they envied him. His words didn't make them lift him up. His words made them want to throw him down. And that's the lesson. Just because God gives you a dream doesn't mean everyone around you is meant to hear it. You see, Joseph's mistake wasn't in dreaming, it was in disclosing too soon. Sometimes what God shows you in the secret place is not supposed to be announced in the public place. Timing matters. Audience matters. And Joseph found out the hard way that premature disclosure can provoke unnecessary warfare. His brothers weren't ready to handle the greatness on his life. And because he gave them access to what should have stayed between him and God, he was sold, betrayed, and thrown into a pit. Now, hear me carefully. God still used that betrayal. God still took him from the pit to the palace. But the pain Joseph endured in the middle teaches us something. Everyone is not equipped to handle your vision. There are people close to you who can love you in one season but resent you in another. They can clap for you as long as you stay small. But when your dream grows larger than their comfort, their love begins to shrink. Some people are fine with you surviving, but they cannot stand to see you succeeding. When Joseph spoke his dream, he expected encouragement. Instead, he received envy. He expected loyalty. Instead, he got betrayal. And some of us are living Joseph's story right now. You thought your family would be the first to support you. You thought your friends would be the first to cheer. But you've discovered that sometimes strangers will celebrate you more than the people who know your name. That's because familiarity breeds contempt. When people know your flaws, they struggle to accept your favor. The lesson here is simple but strong. Keep some things between you and God until He releases you to share them. Because when you share prematurely, you give people the chance to sabotage what God is building. The enemy doesn't need to know your blueprint, he just needs you to talk too much. Joseph gave away his future in words before he had time to mature in reality. Don't make that same mistake. Protect the promise until the promise is strong enough to stand on its own. But let's not miss the other side of Joseph's story. Even though his brothers betrayed him, they could not cancel what God had ordained. The pit didn't cancel it. The prison didn't cancel it. The lies didn't cancel it. The delays didn't cancel it. Because when God gives a dream, no enemy can erase it. That's why you don't have to argue with people who doubt you. You don't have to fight people who mock you. You don't have to explain yourself to everyone who misunderstands you. If the dream is truly from God, then even if others reject you, heaven will still promote you. So Joseph teaches us this: be wise with your words. Be careful with your disclosures. Be discerning with your audience. Everyone who's around you is not with you, and everyone who smiles at you is not for you. Learn from Joseph. Don't hand your dream to those who don't have the capacity to carry it. Let God reveal it in His time. Because when God does it, no pit, no prison, and no betrayal can stop it. There are some things in your life that are not ordinary. They are sacred. Your story, your testimony, your struggles, your dreams, these are not casual details. They carry weight, they carry purpose, they carry destiny, and anything that carries destiny must be guarded. You don't just throw sacred things into the hands of anyone who asks, because not everyone has the reverence to handle what's holy. Think about the temple in the Old Testament. The presence of God wasn't just available for anyone to waltz in and play around with. It was protected, it was set apart, because it was sacred. Only those who were consecrated could enter. Why? Because when something has divine value, it demands divine caution. Now, if God guarded His presence, why do you think you can leave your story unprotected? If He covered what was holy, why would you leave your dreams uncovered? Your story is not entertainment. Your testimony is not gossip material. Your pain is not a topic for careless conversations. And yet, so many people treat their own life like an open book to anyone who shows the slightest bit of interest. But when you fail to guard what's sacred, you invite the wrong hands to handle it, and the wrong hands can damage what God is trying to develop. A diamond doesn't lose its value, but it can lose its shape if handled improperly. A seed has power, but it can die if it's planted in bad soil. In the same way, your sacred story can be delayed, distorted, or discouraged if you let the wrong people speak into it. That's why you must learn to build boundaries around your sacred things. Guard your story with wisdom. Guard your heart with discernment. Guard your future with prayer, because not everyone who's interested is invested. The enemy knows he can't stop the plan of God, but he'll try to contaminate it through exposure. If he can't steal the blessing, he'll try to spoil it by placing it in the wrong environment. That's why Jesus said, don't cast your pearls before swine. Pearls are valuable, but swine don't know what to do with them. They'll trample on them, not because the pearls aren't precious, but because the swine lack the capacity to appreciate them. In the same way, your story is a pearl. Don't throw it into every hand. Don't share it in every circle. Don't put it on display for people who don't understand its value. Guarding what's sacred doesn't mean you're hiding. It doesn't mean you're living in fear. It means you recognize that the treasure inside you is worth protecting. It means you know that the wrong audience can ruin the right assignment. It means you understand that God reveals things in seasons, and until that season comes, you keep it locked in His presence. When you guard what's sacred, you give God room to complete His work without interference. You give the promised time to grow without the pressure of people's opinions. You give the testimony space to form without the weight of unnecessary critics. And when the right moment comes, God Himself will reveal what He has been building in you. By then, no man, no gossip, no betrayal will be able to destroy it, because it will be too strong, too rooted, too blessed to be undone. So the challenge is simple. Stop treating sacred things like common things. Stop throwing your diamonds into dirt and wondering why they come back muddy. Stop giving your story to people who only know how to play with it, not protect it. Learn to guard what's sacred, because once you see the weight of what God has placed in your life, you'll realize it's too valuable to be exposed to just anyone. One of the greatest mistakes we make in life is trying to force the timing of God. We want the promise, but we want it now. We want the dream, but we want it immediately. We want to be heard, seen, and celebrated on our schedule instead of God's. But here's the truth. Divine timing matters. A promise given too soon can feel like a burden. A blessing revealed too early can turn into a curse. A story shared before its season can be misunderstood, rejected, or even destroyed. That's why God not only gives the dream, He controls the timing. Think about fruit on a tree. You can see it growing, you can smell it ripening, but if you pick it before it's ready, it will be bitter. It doesn't matter how good the seed was or how healthy the tree is. If you rush the process, you ruin the harvest. And that's how it is with your story. The dream God planted in you is real, but if you announce it before it matures, people won't taste the sweetness of it. They'll only see the immaturity. Timing matters. Joseph teaches us this lesson again. He had a dream at 17, but he didn't step into fulfillment until years later. In between the dream and the destiny, there was waiting, suffering, preparation. Why? Because he wasn't ready yet. The dream was bigger than the boy who received it. And had Joseph been promoted the moment he dreamed, he would have lacked the wisdom to manage the palace. God had to let him go through the pit, through slavery, through prison, not to punish him, but to prepare him. The dream was set, but the man needed shaping. And that's why divine timing is so critical. Some of you have been frustrated because you feel like your story is hidden, your voice is muted, your opportunities delayed. But what you call delay, God calls development. What feels like silence is actually strategy. He's working behind the scenes, arranging things you can't see, aligning people you don't know, and preparing places you haven't even imagined. And when the right moment comes, when the fullness of time arrives, the doors will open so wide that no man can shut them. But if you rush, if you try to push doors open yourself, you'll find yourself in rooms you're not ready for, facing responsibilities you can't yet handle. That's why some people collapse under blessings. They weren't prepared for the weight of what they asked for. Timing is not just about the blessing being ready. It's about you being ready to carry it. The story you carry has power, but it also has process. Some parts of your testimony aren't meant to be told yet because God is still writing them. If you share them too soon, they may not inspire faith. They may invite confusion. But when God says, now even the parts of your story that once looked like shame will shine as glory, the timing turns the pain into purpose, the confusion into clarity, and the delay into destiny. So learn to trust the pace of God. Don't despise the waiting season. Don't curse the hidden place. Don't mistake preparation for punishment. If you are in process, it means God is building you to handle what He's bringing. And when it comes, it will come suddenly, it will come fully, and it will come in such a way that no enemy can block it. Divine timing matters because destiny isn't about speed, it's about alignment. And when your life aligns with His timing, your story will not just be told, it will be celebrated, protected, and fulfilled exactly the way He intended. One of the most painful lessons in life is discovering that not everyone who listens to you listens with the right intention. Some people lean in, not to understand but to misinterpret. Some people ask you to share not to carry the weight of your truth, but to twist it into something that fits their own agenda. The wrong ears will never hear your story the way it was meant to be heard. They will bend it, reshape it, and use it as a weapon instead of a witness. Have you ever told someone something from your heart, something vulnerable, something true, only to hear it come back to you distorted? You said it one way, but by the time it left their lips, it was exaggerated, twisted, and turned against you. That's the danger of wrong ears. They don't process with grace, they don't receive with humility, they filter everything through jealousy, insecurity, or suspicion. And when your story goes through their filter, it doesn't come out as truth. It comes out as accusation, criticism, or mockery. This is why you cannot be careless about who you trust with your words. Because once a word leaves your mouth, you cannot control how someone else will carry it. Words are powerful, and when they fall into the wrong ears, they can create storms you never intended. You were trying to explain, and suddenly you find yourself having to defend. You were trying to testify, and suddenly you're the subject of gossip. That's what happens when sacred words are dropped into hostile ears. The Bible shows us this pattern over and over again. Look at Jesus. He spoke truth everywhere he went. But the Pharisees, the wrong ears, twisted his words, accusing him of blasphemy. He healed the broken, but they called him a lawbreaker. He preached deliverance, but they accused him of rebellion. His words were perfect, but in the wrong ears, they became fuel for lies. If Jesus himself was misinterpreted, what makes you think you will always be understood? The problem is not your story. It's the soil it lands in. Good seed, planted in bad ground, won't produce a harvest. In the same way, even a truthful word spoken in the presence of wrong ears won't produce peace. Instead, it produces confusion. So, the wisdom is this. Learn to test the soil before you plant the seed. Ask yourself, do these ears have the capacity to hold my truth? Do they have the maturity to process what I'm about to say? Do they have the loyalty to protect what I'm about to share? If the answer is no, then silence is stronger than speech. Wrong ears will twist truth because truth exposes them. When someone doesn't want to deal with their own weakness, they'll distort your words to make you look like the problem. When someone feels threatened by your calling, they'll paint your story in a way that makes you look arrogant instead of anointed. When someone can't stand your growth, they'll twist your journey into something ugly so they can justify staying small. That's why wisdom is not only knowing what to say, but in knowing where to say it. Some things are meant for trusted circles, not open crowds. Some stories are meant for prayer closets, not public platforms. Some truths are meant for people who love you, not people who are looking for a reason to hate you. So don't be surprised when the wrong ears twist your truth. Instead, let it remind you to be discerning. Protect your words. Guard your heart. And remember, when you speak to the wrong ears, your truth becomes their tool. But when you wait on God's timing, He'll place your story before the right ears, and in the right place, your truth will bring healing, not harm. One of the hardest things to accept in life is when people walk away. When friends you trusted turn silent. When family doesn't support you. When circles you once leaned on suddenly grow cold. The natural instinct is to call it rejection, to let it wound you, to see it as a reflection of your worth. But I came to tell you what feels like rejection is often protection. What you think is abandonment is actually God's way of pulling people out of your story, who were never meant to play a permanent role. Every closed door is not an insult. Every no is not a curse. Every exit is not a loss. Sometimes God has to subtract in order to add. Sometimes He has to block a relationship to make room for the right one. Sometimes He has to silence a voice in your life because that voice would have polluted the promise. And if you keep trying to drag into your future the people He removed from your present, you'll sabotage your own destiny. Think about it. Joseph's brothers rejected him, but their rejection pushed him into Egypt, the very place where his destiny was waiting. Had they embraced him, he would have stayed in Canaan, small, unnoticed, undeveloped. It was the sting of rejection that set him on the road to the palace. What they meant for evil, God turned for good. And that's still true for you today. Sometimes God allows rejection because He sees conversations you didn't hear. He knows motives you couldn't discern. He understands thoughts they never spoke out loud. You saw loyalty, but God saw betrayal. You saw friendship, but God saw competition. You saw support, but God saw sabotage. And because you couldn't see it, He had to remove it. He had to protect you by blocking access, even if it hurt your feelings. That's why you can't judge your work by who stays and who leaves. People don't determine your value. God does. If someone walks out of your life, it doesn't mean you're unworthy. It means they're unnecessary for where God is taking you. Their chapter in your story is finished, and if you keep flipping back to it, you'll never read what God has written ahead. Learn to shift your perspective. Instead of saying, they rejected me, start saying, God protected me. Instead of mourning who left, start thanking God for who remains. Instead of chasing doors that closed, start praising Him for the ones He's preparing to open. Because the truth is, you can't reach the palace if you're still crying at the pit. You can't walk into your calling if you're still grieving over the crowd that didn't clap. Sometimes the greatest gift God can give you is the absence of the wrong people. Loneliness with Him is safer than popularity without Him. A few loyal people are more powerful than a crowd of counterfeit supporters. And silence from heaven is more valuable than applause from men. So don't despise it when He removes. Don't resent it when He blocks. Don't resist it when He says no. What looks like rejection is often the shield of protection. So lift your head and change your lens. The people who left weren't assigned to the fullness of your destiny. The doors that closed weren't designed for your purpose. The opportunities that slipped away weren't aligned with your calling. God was protecting you. And if He protected you from what you thought you needed, it's only because He's preparing you for what you truly need.